Hello, everybody. It's another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD, and who's here with me?
It's Michelle.
It's always Michelle. I like how we just kind of fell into that, and it's a thing that we do. We watch Shudder. It says it all right there in the title, right? We checking out new original and exclusive releases from horror streaming service Shudder. If you're a horror movie fan and you're not subscribing to Shudder, you're screwing up. It's $6 a month. Get it done. They've got lots of great library content. They're putting out new original and exclusive stuff every week. We are not affiliated with them in any way officially. We each both pay our $6 a month still, just like everybody else. But we're also pretentious enough to think that anybody might be interested in what we thought of their movies. So what are we talking about today, Michelle?
We're talking about The Cellar.
The Cellar is the name of that movie. So as we do, I'm just going to read to you here the website. Wow, why couldn't I remember what the word was? I'm going to read you the actual description of the film that you would find right on the Shudder website. So if there's anything in here that you end up thinking is spoilery, blame them. I'm just reading what's on the website. And then we'll go over our spoiler-free thoughts, give you a basic summary, and then we'll go and dig in after that. So here we go. Just not wasting any time this week. The Cellar. After Kira Woods, in parentheses, Alicia Cuthbert, after Kira Wood's daughter mysteriously vanishes in the cellar of their new house, she discovers there is an ancient and powerful entity controlling their home. She must face the ultimate evil or risk losing her family's souls forever. A Shudder original. Short, sweet, and to the point. Michelle, hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts on The Cellar.
Well, first off, I have an irrational fear of basements, and this movie did not help that at all.
Fair enough.
Cellars are basically basements, but for rich people. And this one has a very creepy one.
Cellars are basements for rich people.
Yes. I also love Alicia Cuthbert. Girl Next Door was one of my favorite movies when I was a teenager. So seeing her in a horror movie, it's great. Without getting into spoilers, I will just say that I had a lot of fun with this movie. I thought there was a lot of really beautiful cinematography. There was a lot of really good tension building, kind of all the things that you would want in a film. I will give this 4 skulls, which is contingent on the fact that I have realized I was too nice to See For Me last week, which should have been a 3.5. Now that I'm comparing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so this is a true 4.
All right, so Michelle's going 4 skulls on The Cellar. I am not. I thought this movie started out interesting. I was very curious about where it was going for the first 20 to 30 minutes or so. Maybe even more than that, honestly. But the further into the movie we got, the less and less interested I became. I thought it became sillier and sillier and sillier as the movie went on. And I just, it didn't do anything for me at all. This is very much one that probably it's not even really my flavor. We'll talk about more of the reasons why when we get into the spoilery section. But yeah, this one, I don't know. I didn't hate it. It just did nothing for me. I'm going to go 1.5. And so that's like a 5.5, which averages to 2.75. Now, to be clear, Michelle is apparently more on the side of what most other people thought, because on the Shudder website right now, the aggregate rating is 4 out of 5 skulls. So maybe I don't know.
I have things to say when we get to the spoiler area,
Absolutely.
Which I believe we're probably at.
Yeah, we're pretty much about to hit it. So if you don't want to have any spoilers, if you want to go see the movie first before you come and listen to the spoilers, now's where you want to stop. All right, then. Michelle.
Yes.
Tell me all about why you love this movie. Let me hear it.
Yeah, so I actually think we had opposite experiences, where you were really drawn in at the beginning and were kind of curious about it, where it drew me in the more that I watched it.
Interesting.
Um, it felt very traditional in kind of a way, like where it was just like a haunted house and what's going on in the house, and now we're following this mystery. But I don't really mind that formula because that formula works. It does set up, kind of understanding what's going on. I didn't think that there were a lot of like truly scary moments, but I did think that it kept giving you this like sense of bigger things to come. And I liked the payoff at the end when we saw what that was. And I didn't really
Ooh.
need all the like jump scares in the middle and like all that kind of stuff that you would usually find in kind of like a, I know it's not a haunted house, but a house with bad things in it.
Sure. Sure.
So I didn't mind the formula, and the further along it went, I love that ending. I love that ending a lot. So that was a big part where I was
Oh,
kind of swaying, like
you mean the
between,
ending
yeah,
where the goat person comes out of the cellar and
yeah,
tries
I
to
loved it.
I don't know, I guess was trying to kill them. He didn't make a whole lot of effort, I guess, but
It was more the idea of being in hell and just counting for the rest of your life. Like the goat, it was like, well, okay,
is
that's fine. But like,
the,
I really like just like this long line of people counting
sure,
to a
and
million. Ooh.
interestingly enough, also you and I, there is that moment towards the end of the film where they actually do make the full descent, and there are those long lines of shambling people
Mm-hmm.
in hell. I felt that sequence was in its own way very reminiscent of a movie that we were just talking about off record. The sort of the ending sequences in a movie like Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
These really bizarre sort of hellscapes and things. I thought that, I mean, obviously this is somebody who has seen some things and has some points of reference in what they were making. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out when you were talking about
Mm-hmm.
hellishness. Go ahead, tell me some more about this. I want to give you more time to talk before I rip into
Oh,
this thing.
okay. No, that's fine. I think part of it is I just really love Alicia Cuthbert, and she's great. Her acting in this movie is great. Even
I'm
if you
not.
don't like the material, I love her, and she was awesome.
I'm
Um,
uh, I'm not gonna lie. If I hadn't read that little summary about the movie before I turned it on, I probably wouldn't have even recognized her.
she's beautiful. How could you? She is a goddess. Anyway, there was one really big plot hole that I had a hard time
Just
looking
one? Oh,
past.
just one that you had a hard time
Just
with. Okay.
it was huge, and it's when the teenage daughter is going into the cellar. She has a candle with her and is on the phone with her mother, and the candle flickers, and she's worried about going out. I do not believe that that child would not have a flashlight app on her phone and be talking to her mom on speakerphone. Come on.
Right.
That child's not going to use primitive technology.
Especially when they were all using flashlights on their cell phones earlier in the film or at other points in the film.
Exactly. Like clearly your phone is not close to losing battery or like going dead or whatever they call it now. My phone never dies. It is a remarkable piece of technology. We have computers with us everywhere we go.
Yeah.
But like your phone's fine. Just use your flashlight app. Like who uses a candle? Old
Yeah,
people.
I don't know.
This
Yeah.
is a young, spry woman, and I'm very mad about that. But the counting throughout really I loved so much. That kind of constant pattern that then comes together at the end. And there were a lot of scenes of like you'd hear something and it wasn't in focus, and as it comes rolling towards the camera, it's a ball, and that like just like what am I hearing? I can't fully tell. Like I thought those shots were so pretty. And I don't know, I thought it was like a very traditional formulaic movie, but I enjoyed that, and I have no problem with a formula that works in
Fair
horror.
enough. So as long as you're going to give me the go ahead, Q, you got anything else you want to add in here before I go off on my little diatribe like
Nope.
I know a
Get
thing or two?
Get brutal.
No,
Go ahead.
it's not even honestly going to be all that brutal. This movie falls into a place. It's a very specific type of movie that just doesn't work for me. And the reason it doesn't work for me is because it uses all of this imagery of like the Baphomet and pentagrams and alchemical concepts and things like that. But it uses them in a way that clearly like demonstrates that whoever wrote this doesn't really understand anything about those things, or does and just didn't care and wanted to use them as things that happen in the movie. I don't know. Anytime something gets too close to trying to present, I guess what I would call a sort of Christianized version of evil and those traditional satanic elements of pentagrams and Baphomets and stuff, there's a level of lameness and cheesiness that it just doesn't work for me. Also, man, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little on my high horse here, but like Baphomets and pentagrams, really? What are we, fucking 7? Come on. Like I thought it was all I thought it was more than formulaic. I thought it was like the early part of the movie, like where they start talking about the alchemical stuff. Like I literally have a note here on my notes that says, "Ooh, creepy math. I'm with it." Like I was genuinely interested in where they were going to take this, because those are things that I kind of enjoy, but like the only people who still think the Baphomet was a symbol of evil are people who don't know anything at all about Baphomets. The reason it has both male and female features, and the reason it's part man and part animal, and the reason it talks about dissolving in coagulation is because it's a symbol of balance. That's the whole reason the thing exists. It has nothing to do with evil, and the only reason it has anything to do with evil and any of that context comes from this very Christianized Western perspective on it. It's been scapegoated, no pun intended, so much. And that sort of stuff just doesn't do anything for me, because I have no, I don't know, I just find it super silly, and I can't disconnect from that impression of it enough to just be able to understand the story or to experience the story on its own. And so because of that, it just never brought me in any way at all. There were a few things I did like, because obviously, like I've said, I like to go and mention things specifically that I've enjoyed. There's a couple of moments. Again, the creepy math, I thought that was super interesting. There's that moment where she puts the black light up in the basement, in the cellar, and there's all those creepy faces all over the wall. I was like, whoa, what's that all about? Like all the setup had me really going. And then I can tell you pretty much exactly where the movie started to lose me, and it was a very rapid loss from that point forward, is the scene in the church where she's talking to the old lady who was the daughter of the physicist / alchemist. And yeah, just from that point forward, I was out. And yeah, that's apparently not even as vitriolic a diatribe as even I was expecting. But yeah, just this sort of story just doesn't work for me at all.
And see, this is like the kind of movie that I do like. I like creepy houses. I like things where maybe they're demonic, maybe not. And I agree with you that it starts out like, ooh, is this going to be fresh and exciting and creepy math? Agreed. I love when a horror movie in particular, tries to get smart and scientific with stuff. And when they revealed it's just Baphomet, I was a little disappointed, but I went, okay, that's fine. They didn't go like the brand new route that I wanted them to, and I feel like they didn't live up to the potential of that. I will absolutely agree with that. But even so, I'm just like, well, I've seen a lot of movies, and I've seen a lot of those types of movies, so maybe to somebody who isn't as familiar with all of like the movies, that they would enjoy this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm quick to say that this is more a situation where this is just not a movie that works for me, because my understanding and perspectives on those concepts take me out of being able to just suspend my disbelief, right? It's not necessarily a failing of the film. It's just we didn't connect in any way at all. I do want to point out that one place where you and I absolutely agree, so much so that it's absolutely the very first note on my list of notes. It just says, I love big creepy houses. I thought they found a great setting. for the film. I did think they maybe we could have used I don't know 3 or 4 less long shots down a stairwell. I guess maybe they like if I had been more drawn into the film itself, I would have been more into the thematic recurrence of that. But I was just like, oh look, it's a long deep stairwell again. Great.
Well, it's supposed to only be 10 steps, but then it's a million.
Then it's more steps. It's steps all the way to hell.
It's more. And come on, that's the worst thing. Going up or downstairs is the worst. That would be my hell, having to go up and down steps.
I do have to ask you a question, though, because I need to know. How far into this movie did you figure out that they were in Europe?
Well, I recognized that the entire family except her had Irish accents, so I assumed immediately when I heard them talking that they were in Europe and she was the one who had moved there. I did question it.
Because I realized it to the extent that I actually have a note here early on that says, hey, wait, why has this kid got an accent but mom doesn't? And then I finally, I saw the license plate when she was driving around putting up the posters of the missing girl, and I realized she was in a car with the steering wheel on the wrong side, because, well, the British side. Which is the wrong side, America, blah. No, and I was like, oh, and then I have a note that says, oh, wait, are they in Europe? And I just missed this. So
you did not recognize that the dad or the teenage daughter had Irish accents
not
too?
Right away. No. And I feel silly about it. And once I sorted it, I was like, oh, wait, they have accents too. Because, a couple of those people in those early marketing meeting scenes had just normal accents. Jesus, JD.
American.
Wow. It's coming out just without even trying right now. That's incredible. But no, they sounded like American people, and then it just never fully registered with me until embarrassingly late that it's like, oh yeah, they're in Europe. That's a thing. So
I don't think they ever talk about it's never a plot point that's brought up about why she lives with her Irish family at all, right? I didn't miss that.
Is she stepmom, or did they just meet and she happens to be American, but the whole family has been raised in Ireland or whatever, so that's why they have the accents, but she does. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. I just thought it was really...
I was curious about it though too, because I mean, when you do have a family with different accents, you do have to wonder, did she live someplace else? And that's why the teenage daughter is saying that you don't know her anymore because she's been separated and she went back to the USA for a while.
Sure.
What are those plot points? But as far as I could tell, they never discuss it, or at least it never becomes a huge deal.
Right. It does make me wonder. It makes me wonder if maybe this movie was a little longer at one point and got trimmed down in the editing room. Which, I mean, thank God I didn't need any more of this than I already had. But so, yeah. Overall, though, yeah, just... here's an interesting thing about it, especially, is not only did it irritate my personal perspectives on certain symbolisms and whatnot getting a bad rap, also, dear everybody who ever writes a physicist, dimensions are not places. An alternate universe or an alternate reality and a dimension are not the same thing. Dimension describes reality. It's not a place you can go to. Please stop. I will never forgive that dude who wrote the intro to The Twilight Zone for talking about how we're entering a new dimension. No! Stop! It's an absurd pet peeve of mine, and it drives me nuts.
You did have a stand-up bit become part of scientific presentation, didn't you? So I feel like you are the most qualified person to speak on
absolutely.
Scientific things. You are obviously a true academic.
Exactly. You tell a joke about how men are bad at giving women orgasms, but you do it in a very, very scientific way, and that makes you an expert. Yeah, it's a long story, guys. Maybe one of these days I'll explain it to you. Some of you know, some of you have no context. That was a weird
I
tangent.
prefer no context. No, that's why I was like, hey, you're a scientist, right? And you're like, yeah, do you want to hear me explain how fruit comes or how trees come in your mouth when you eat an apple? And I'm like, yes,
Wow.
you're a scientist.
Lord, this one's definitely getting the explicit mark on the podcast upload.
Should we just say fuck a couple times just to make sure?
It is what it is. Yeah, look, okay, as long as she brought it up, essentially the gist of what happened is I wrote this dumb joke that was stop it. I wrote this joke that is sort of centered around a mildly scientific idea. And then I read a report about a year later about some people who did some research that demonstrated that this dumb idea I created just as a joke is actually exactly what happened. And it's a whole thing. Anyway, we've completely lost track of the Cellar, which is appropriate.
I figured there wasn't much more to talk about, so I was like, let's talk about your scientific background.
There's not enough. Yeah. Well, as long as I'm going to yell and scream about how dimensions are not places. Oh, yeah, well, whatever.
This one has really upset you. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I'm so sorry that you had to watch The Cellar. It sounds like it really upset you on a couple different dimensions or levels.
It didn't upset me. It just bored me. It was like, oh, great. Fair. Here's an hour and 45 minutes I'll never have back.
But it is only 94 minutes.
Well, whatever. Regardless.
I'm looking at it. That's
regardless, I very much... I don't even know what I was. This is what this movie did to me. It melted my brain. I can't even remember what I was about to say right now. I'm not going to say anything else. This has gone completely off the rails. This podcast is done. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.